If you've never stood at your window and watched strangers pour concrete for 96 houses on your own land you've mowed, cried on, buried your old dog behind the pine trees, you don't know what it's like to feel your heart pounding against the glass while an excavator rips into your future. That's where I was, morning sun hitting my face when the homeowners association, who'd spent 3 years fining me for things like grass too long or fence color non-compliance, thought they'd finally broken me for good. They poured millions into those foundations, parading around like conquering heroes, while I just kept my mouth shut and let them dig, because I was getting ready to hit back in a way none of them could have seen coming. You know what changed the whole game? A metallic clang at 7:43 on a freezing Tuesday in January, the kind of sound that gets in your head and rattles around until it means something. I watched as Kang, their operator, paused his big yellow bucket and looked over at Ellie Walker, clipboard queen, standing by the trailer in her pressed khakis. She hustled over, stared at whatever he'd just uncovered, and snapped her hand so quick you'd think she'd seen a ghost. In 2 minutes, blue tarp was down, shovels digging everywhere but there. And that little moment I'd come to realize was the one that would haunt Ellie for the next 8 months. Let me back up a sec, take you to March 2022, because every real war has its reasons. The harassment started like it always does, with something stupid. Ellie, official HOA documentation folder in hand, telling me my old Honda Civic was significantly reducing everyone's property values. Imagine looking at your own car, the same one you drove your mom home from the hospital in after her stroke, and being told you're bringing down the whole street. It only got nastier from there. Ruler out, measuring my grass 3 inches, she said, can't be 3 1/4. Camera up, photographing every paint chip, every weed, every Amazon box. Fines started at $50, sometimes daily, climbing to hundreds. When I put in for a wheelchair ramp for my mom, permit denied. Not consistent with neighborhood aesthetics, she wrote. I carried my mother up those steps for 6 months, watched her white-knuckle the railing while Ellie's committee invented new delays. That's when I knew this wasn't just rules. This was someone getting off on making life hell. Final straw winter storm caved my roof and gutters, peeled off like a banana. Application for repair just sat there, 6 months of made-up requirements, extra documents. Even a soil impact study for a roof. Rainwater dripped on my family photos, mold grew under my couch, while Ellie played judge, jury, and executioner. When I confronted her in front of the whole community, she looked me dead in the eye and said, maybe this isn't the right neighborhood for you, Jackson. You ever had someone try to evict your soul? That's what it feels like. So yeah, I kept quiet, but I was documenting everything, including the moment that backhoe hit metal. What Ellie didn't know was that a delivery driver's dash cam got the whole thing, her whispering to keep it quiet, her motioning to handle this internally. I downloaded it, backed it up, time-stamped it, because sometimes the nail in the coffin is hiding where no one's looking. That's when I called Linda Rodriguez. Figured I'd get some legal advice, maybe a template complaint. What I got was a co-conspirator with her own reasons. Turns out Ellie tried to run Linda's family out with the same tricks years ago. Jackson, she said you could call the cops, file an injunction, stop them right now, or let them finish. If they spend $3 million on your land, you can sue for $9 million. That's treble damages. I almost laughed out loud, legal revenge. That's my kind of chess game. But Linda warned me, don't be so quiet that they can claim you agreed by not objecting. So we drafted a notice, vague but airtight, telling them a survey was underway. Maybe don't dig too deep till it's settled. My hands shook a little, sending that letter, not gonna lie. That's what it feels like, staring down people with power, with your family's land and legacy hanging in the balance. Linda's in, but we needed intel from the inside. Enter David Mitchell. Met him at a hole-in-the-wall cafe, looking like he hadn't slept since Christmas. Turns out he's Ellie's nephew. He'd been working construction for her, thought she was just helping family until he read the fine print. She promised me a house for a family discount. I gave her everything I'd saved. Then I found a clause, if there's a dispute, I get nothing. Betrayed by blood, and the guy's hands shook as he handed me the contract. But the real bombshell, David had proof Ellie knew I owned the land, told the board I'd never fight, so they'd just build established facts on the ground. If I sued, she'd offer me a pitiful settlement, banking on me being too broke to keep going. That's when David crossed the line. He'd lost his savings. But what mattered was his aunt's lies to everyone, family included. He promised to help bring her down if I'd help him get his 10 grand back someday. It was the kind of handshake you don't forget. You think that's the twist? Wait, Ellie starts sniffing around my finances, hiring a PI, looking for any crack in my chain of title. That night I tore my home office apart, reading my father's old deed line by line, each call, every iron rod, every witness tree. My dad did things right, double-checked, labeled left notes for the next guy. It was all there, clean and true. Linda, even half asleep, calmed me down, told me she'd already run a title search. Your deed's solid. But this isn't just about helping you. Ellie did this to my family too 15 years ago. Now's our chance to stop her for good. David started feeding us info, a surveyor showing up checking for ways the HOA could claim adverse possession, looking for abandonment. We found my dad's old hand-drawn mark on the survey led us to a massive pine tree living boundary. My father had planted it as a marker, outsmarting anyone who thought stakes could be moved or forgotten. The roots spread just like this fight. Then came the crash. Emily Johnson, 8 years old, moving into a brand new house built right on my land, beaming about planting purple flowers from her grandma for good luck. You want to talk about guilt? Watching her parents work double shifts for years thinking they've found their forever home when all they'd really bought was a seat at Ellie's high-stakes roulette table. I showed Emily how to plant the lavender. She said Grandma always said if the flowers grow, it means a place is honest. If not, there are lies underneath. Every day, more moving trucks, more families, more dreams built on shaky dirt. My anger and guilt fought inside me. Do I blow the whistle and kick them all out? Or wait, build the case, make sure no one else gets hurt? Then the construction crew ran over Emily's flowers, crushed dreams in the dirt, her in pajamas, holding a broken stem. Can you help this grow back, Mr. Jackson? Or are some things too broken to fix? That kid taught me something. I had to let things break before they could be rebuilt stronger. The day of the court filing, the town was buzzing. Linda marched up those courthouse steps with me documents in hand, and the judge's questions came hard and fast. Ellie tried her best. We've maintained this land for 20 years. He never objected. He abandoned it. Her lawyer paraded photos of HOA landscaping charts files. But Linda had the silver bullet tax records where Ellie claimed the land as a boundary dispute to lower her own bill while telling the court she always owned it clear as day. Judge was not amused. Then David stood up in court, yes, as Ellie's nephew, and told the whole truth, handed over board minutes, audio, the lot. Ellie's face went pale, her own family testifying. That's when the house of cards collapsed. Contractor liens started piling up, unpaid bills, frozen accounts, vendors hauling their gear off site. The county sheriff walked the fence with stop work orders, red placards blooming like poppies. In the crowd, you could feel opinions shifting, neighbors realizing their HOA was more house of mirrors than guardian angel. The trial was brutal. Ellie's facade crumbled, caught in lies, admitting on tape she'd built facts on the ground to bluff me out of my own land, gambling with millions other people's homes and her own nephew's life savings. In the end, Judge Wilson didn't order the houses torn down, too many innocent families. She made Ellie pay treble damages, over $7 million, 90 days to pay, or face criminal charges. Ellie's house had a for sale sign by the weekend. But here's what mattered: Emily and her family and every other victim didn't lose their homes. I sold the land back to them at the price they'd paid, set up a fund to help with closing costs, and together we turned the disputed boundary into a community garden. Emily replanted her lavender, and the whole neighborhood pitched in marigolds, tomatoes, benches, even a plaque that reads, "People keep their promises here." David, now interim HOA manager, runs meetings where anyone can ask anything and nobody's left in the dark. The court set rules, independent audits, public records. And every Wednesday, Linda and a few volunteer lawyers help neighbors understand deeds and titles, making sure no one gets taken again. Sometimes justice is just a new start. That garden on Lot 97, its proof roots grow deeper after a storm. The real win wasn't the money or the headlines or watching Ellie walk out the back of the courthouse alone. It was seeing Emily's flowers bloom, knowing the ground was finally honest. So what do you think, is justice about punishment or rebuilding trust? Would you have waited and let the fraud play out, or pulled the trigger sooner? Let me know in the comments. Hit like, share your story, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Because in this world, it's not just about winning, it's about what you do next.